The email hit Priya's phone at 8:47 a.m. Tuesday, New York time. Subject line: Urgent. Boardroom 47, 9:15 a.m. Attendance required. Carbon copied to 17 people she'd never met. She stood in the ground floor restroom of Meridian Capital, rereading the message on a phone screen that trembled in her hands. Someone had made a mistake. A beautiful, professional mistake. In 30 seconds, she'd have to walk upstairs, find a conference room on a floor she'd never been to, and sit in a room full of people who controlled $2.4 billion in assets, 3,100 jobs, and the future of a company she'd been answering phones for 6 months, 48 hours. That was the takeover window. And one of the people at that table was about to lie to save everything. She steadied her breath, checked her reflection, the charcoal blazer she'd worn for client lunches, no stains, and stood. The fluorescent hum of the restroom seemed to swallow the sound of the door closing behind her. The 47th floor smelled like leather and espresso that cost more than her hourly wage. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Hudson River in slate gray. The glass conference table reflected the skyline back at itself, doubled and inverted. 7 people sat already, 7 faces that didn't look up. A woman in a cream-colored suit turned to her. "You're the communications liaison," someone had written on the email. Priya had memorized it. "Priya Mehta. Sit. There. Far end." The woman pointed. Her fingers were bare of rings but grooved where rings used to be. Priya moved toward the chair. The city's shadow fell across the table as a cloud passed the sun. For a moment, the whole room darkened, and all she could hear was the hum of the ceiling's climate control and the whisper of someone's silk sleeve against the armrest. She sat. The chair was too high. Her feet didn't touch the ground right. She had no idea what she was there to do. Meridian's board chair just received a soft offer from Thoreau Capital, the man across from her said. He wore a suit so tailored it seemed to have been made for him alone, dark blue, no pattern. His eyes were the color of storm clouds over water. 42% premium, all cash, 60 days closing. They're hostile. They know we have internal friction. A document slid toward Priya. A non-disclosure agreement, pages thick, with a red tab flagged at the signature line. The woman in cream glanced sideways at her. "She needs to sign," someone said. Priya had been holding her breath. She exhaled before she meant to. The sound was audible. Every head swiveled. She picked up the pen on the table, a Mont Blanc cold and heavy, and signed her name above the date field. Her signature looked small against all that white space. Thoreau's angle is simple, the storm-eyed man continued, his gaze still on her. They've got a mole, someone inside who can tell them exactly which divisions are bleeding cash, which contracts are at risk, and when we'll be too thin to fight. They're flying their lead investor in tomorrow, making their formal play in 42 hours. The woman in cream opened a folder. Inside was a screenshot of a text message, sent from a blocked number. "They've taken everything. I'm giving them the Madrid facility files and the Q4 projections. You were right. The board won't see it coming." Sent at 11:34 p.m. the night before. Time stamped. From an unknown account to another unknown account. "This was intercepted by our IT security team this morning," the cream woman said. "We have 90 minutes to identify which of those files have walked, and we have 12 hours to prepare a defensive counter-narrative before Thoreau presents." "That's impossible," someone muttered. The storm-eyed man's jaw tightened. "Not if we're smart." He looked at Priya again. Really looked. Like he was reading something written under her skin. "You're the communications liaison," he said. His voice was quiet. It filled the whole room anyway. "I need you to be more than that for the next hour." His office was on the 48th floor, one level up, floor-to-ceiling windows on 3 sides. The city spread below like it was waiting to be conquered. His name was Marcus. Chief Executive Officer, Meridian Capital, founder at 28, Harvard MBA, divorced twice, known for buying failing companies and restructuring them into profit, a reputation that made him sound either brilliant or ruthless, depending on who was talking. He locked the door behind them. I need a lie, he said. Just one, a good one. We tell them you're my wife. We tell them your job here is as a strategic advisor, equity partner. We tell them I consulted you on the Thoreau play before anyone else in this company. Priya opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Why? She managed. Because Thoreau's mole thinks I'm isolated, thinks the board is fractured. If you're my spouse, if I'm confident enough to include you on a call that's this sensitive, it changes their read. It makes them think twice. That's a lie. Yes. And it stays a lie for exactly 1 hour. We call the board in at noon. We present a united front. You're there. You're my wife. You heard the plans. You support the defense strategy. Then the meeting ends. You go back downstairs. Your real title goes back on your business card. Nothing else changes. He moved to a dark cabinet, pulled out a folder and opened it. Inside was a single-page contract. Partnership Presence and Media Coordination Agreement. Subsection PR12, 3 in bold type, laid out exactly what he was asking. No photographs. No social media posts. No press comment without written consent from both parties. Her information would not be shared with the board beyond the meeting. Her privacy was protected under company non-disclosure policy. She could use a safe word if the arrangement became uncomfortable at any point, and she had the right to walk away with severance and a positive reference letter, no questions asked. What's the safe word? Priya asked. He paused. What would you choose? She thought of her childhood, of her grandmother's kitchen in Mumbai, the word she and her sister used when pretend games got too real, when the line between imagination and hurt got thin. True North, she said. He wrote it in by hand, in the blank space left for it, initialed it. If you say it, we stop, full stop, no consequence. You're protected. She read it twice. Every word was exactly what it claimed to be. She signed. The boardroom filled at 11:58 a.m. 14 people, including the woman in cream, Ellen Voss, chief financial officer, founder's oldest friend, eyes like someone who'd learned to trust nobody. Marcus entered from his private door, his hand in the small of Priya's back. Not possessive. Protective. She wore her charcoal blazer and a gray silk scarf she'd borrowed from a colleague, something that read as expensive enough without being false. I want to introduce you to Priya Mehta, Marcus said, his voice carrying the tone of someone making an announcement they'd rehearsed in their head 100 times. My wife. She's joining us for this call. Priya smiled. It was the smile she used when clients called angry. Calm, present, believable. Ellen's eyebrows lifted. She looked at Marcus, then at Priya, then back at Marcus. This is our first board meeting together, Marcus continued. He pulled out a chair, the one beside him, which had been empty until now, and Priya sat. Priya has a background in strategic communications. She helped me map out our defensive position against Thoreau. She's here because I wanted her perspective in real time. Congratulations, Ellen said with absolutely no warmth. How long has this been? 3 years, Priya said, before Marcus could answer. She kept her voice level. We were private about it. He wanted to keep his personal life away from the board. It was the truth, twisted. There was no personal life. No 3 years. But the way she said it, with the inflection of someone who'd been excluded, who'd respected that exclusion, made it land as real. A man in his 60s wearing cufflinks that matched his watch, leaned back in his chair. Well, that explains the sudden restructuring of Q2 strategy. I wondered why we were diverging from the original Madrid play, because the original play had a hole, Marcus said. And Priya caught it. 2 weeks ago, she flagged something in our cost projections that nobody else was seeing. This was news to Priya. Dangerous news. The kind of lie that could unravel. But Marcus continued, and she realized he wasn't lying about the structure. He was repurposing something she'd actually said. 3 weeks ago, in an elevator, a passing comment about how the Madrid facility's overhead seemed misaligned with the quarterly report, and making it sound like strategy. She was right, Ellen said quietly. She was staring at Priya. The overhead was misaligned. We corrected it in the revised budget. The one we sent to... She stopped. Her face went pale. To the mole. Someone finished. The revised budget went to 43 people, Ellen said, including executives, board members, and 3 external consultants. But only one of them works for Thoreau, Marcus said. His voice hadn't changed tone, but his hand had tightened on the edge of the table. We can cross-reference email access logs with the timing of that screenshot. We know when the files were accessed. We know which user account pulled the Madrid data. IT can correlate the IP address, the timestamp, the login keystroke pattern. Priya's suggestion about the overhead helped us rebuild the timeline. It was a story. A clean story. And it had just made Priya not just his spouse, but his partner. His eyes. Ellen was still looking at her. For a moment, Priya thought the CFO might stand up and walk out. Might say something that would tear the whole carefully constructed lie to pieces. Instead, Ellen nodded slowly. "Show us the timeline," she said. The call lasted for 2 hours. Priya said almost nothing. She took notes on a legal pad, real notes, information she actually needed to track the board's questions and objections. Twice, she made eye contact with Marcus and nodded at something he'd said, and the gesture seemed to settle the room. She was a witness to his competence. A mirror. At 1:47 p.m., as Marcus was walking the board through the backup infrastructure that would protect against Thoreau's access, Priya noticed Ellen scribbling something on her own legal pad. The CFO had circled a number, the premium percentage, and drawn an arrow toward Priya's seat. A question without words. "Did you tell him?" Priya very slowly shook her head. Ellen leaned back in her chair and smiled. The smile was small and exhausted and said good. When the boardroom emptied at 2:04 p.m., Marcus asked Priya to walk with him to his office. The gesture was casual, unremarkable. A husband and wife in a hallway, nothing strange. But the second the door closed, he pulled out his phone and opened his email. "I had sent the keystroke analysis 3 minutes ago," he said. His voice had changed, less performance, more urgency. The mole account was accessed from a terminal in the Madrid facility between 11:12 and 11:34 p.m. last night. That's a 400-mile difference from Thoreau's primary office. They'd have to teleport. "Unless it's someone in Madrid," Priya said. "Madrid operations manager, Alejandro Santos, 15 years with the company, close friend of the previous CEO, who was pushed out 2 years ago when Thoreau started circling." Marcus pulled up a photo. A man in his late 40s, tan, wearing a golf shirt and holding a drink at what looked like a company picnic. He had thick eyebrows that met in the middle. He was smiling, but his eyes looked tired. "He doesn't know we know," Marcus said, "which means he's still working with Thoreau's people, still thinking he's secure." He set the phone on his desk and looked at Priya. "Thank you." The words were simple. No elaboration. Priya felt something shift in her chest, something small and dangerous. The kind of thing that happens when a lie held long enough starts to feel like the truth. "I didn't do anything," she said quietly. "I made one comment about overhead." "No," Marcus said. "You sat in that room and you made every person at that table believe you belonged there. You made them believe I'm someone who trusts his wife enough to include her at the highest level. That's not nothing." He was standing close, not inappropriately close, but close enough that she could see the exact shade of gray in his eyes. Not storm clouds over water, but something more specific, silver and slate with threads of actual blue underneath. "We're not actually married," she said. "Not yet," he said. Then, as though he'd said something completely normal and not devastating, he walked to his desk and checked his watch. "It's almost 2:15, the safe word. Still good?" Priya nodded. "Good," Marcus said. "Because Thoreau's lead investor just landed at JFK. They're heading to Meridian's offices in Manhattan. They'll be here in 90 minutes. We're about to find out if our lie holds." The Thoreau team brought flowers, white orchids in a crystal vase, the kind that cost $700 and said nothing honest at all. The lead investor was a woman named Catherine Huang, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Priya's monthly rent. She smiled at Marcus like a shark smiles at fish. "Marcus, congratulations on the new chapter," Catherine said. Her eyes moved to Priya. And congratulations to you on the marriage, Ellen told us. Lovely surprise. So Ellen had confirmed it, had legitimized the lie before the enemy even arrived. Thank you, Priya said. She was standing slightly behind Marcus, but not so far that she couldn't touch his back if needed. She could see the line of his shoulder, the way his suit jacket fit. She could feel him breathing, synchronized, waiting. Actually, Catherine said, settling into one of the chairs in Marcus's office, I wanted to speak with you both. Off the record, a trap. Priya felt it immediately, the kind of thing that sounds like friendship but moves like a blade. Of course, Marcus said. Catherine pulled out her phone. She opened a message thread, dark mode, impossible to read the words clearly, and turned the screen toward them. This was sent from a terminal at your Madrid facility, she said, at 11:34 p.m. yesterday, to a personal email address registered to someone at Meridian. The message was the same screenshot they'd seen on Ellen's folder, the confession about the Madrid files, the Q4 projections, the board's blindness. We know the mole exists, Catherine continued. She was still smiling. The question is whether the executive team is genuinely fractured enough to make this work for us, or whether you're getting ahead of this. Marcus didn't move. Priya watched his hands. They were still. We're getting ahead of it, he said. Prove it, Catherine said. And that's when something happened that Priya almost didn't catch. It was so small that it might have been nothing. Catherine reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a gold pen. Expensive, monogrammed with initials that looked like ARS. Alejandro Rodrigo Santos. She set it on the table between them. Your mole, Catherine said. He was so grateful to finally be heard. He wanted to make sure his loyalty was visible. He sent this ahead of his files. Consider it a gesture of partnership. She didn't put the pen back in her pocket. It sat on the table, gleaming. A signature. A confession written in metal. I don't think Alejandro sent that, Marcus said. His voice hadn't changed. I think you're testing us. I think you want to see if we'll panic, if we'll move against someone we can't verify. I think you're hoping the team will fragment. Catherine smiled wider. Clever man. And I think, Marcus said, that the pen is yours. That Alejandro never came to see you. That your intelligence about Meridian is 3 weeks old, based on a single intercepted message that could have been written by anyone. That you're phishing. And that if you were serious, you'd have made your formal offer by now instead of testing us in my office. Catherine stood up. She picked up the pen and put it back in her jacket. You'll hear from us, she said. When she left, Priya realized she'd been holding her breath since Catherine pulled out her phone. That was real, she whispered. Very real, Marcus said. And we just lied to her face. We just protected this company, he said, and everyone whose paycheck depends on it. But something in his expression had changed. The careful performance had cracked. Behind it was something raw. Exhaustion, maybe. Or fear. Or the knowledge that he'd just backed them both into a corner where the lie had to hold. Because the truth couldn't. He looked at Priya like he was seeing her for the first time. Still good with the safe word? He asked quietly. Yes, she said. It wasn't true. She wasn't sure anymore. Marcus's apartment was in Tribeca, 42 floors up, the kind of place that made Manhattan look like it belonged to him alone. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a kitchen that had never been used for cooking, a bedroom she didn't ask to see. At 4:33 p.m., Priya stood at the window in his living room and watched the city darken below. Marcus was on a call with Ellen. She could hear his voice coming from behind a closed door, low and urgent. Something about securing the keystroke logs before Thoreau's legal team filed an injunction. The lie was getting heavier, more detailed, more real. She pulled out her phone. 6 text messages from her mother. Beta, are you coming to dinner on Sunday? Your father wants to know. Her mother didn't know she'd been married to her phone for 6 months. Didn't know she'd just told 14 people that she was married to the CEO of a $2.4 billion company. Her parents had never even met Marcus. They'd never met anyone she worked with. There was a small table near the window with a lamp and a leather notebook. Priya opened it absently, looking for something to distract herself with. The first page had a single sentence written in careful handwriting. Remember what matters. Below it, a date. 2 years ago. She heard Marcus step behind her before she saw him. He was holding something, a small wooden box, old, the kind that held valuables. That's not mine, he said, seeing where she was looking. The notebook. It was my ex-wife's. I never threw it out. Priya closed it quickly. I want to tell you something, Marcus said. He opened the box. Inside was a bracelet, delicate, silver, with 3 small charms hanging from it. A key, a compass rose, a tiny book. This belonged to my grandmother. She gave it to my mother before she died. My mother gave it to me when I turned 21. She said it was to remind me that home isn't a place. It's a choice. The key was her childhood home in Taiwan. The compass was the direction she chose when she left. The book was what she studied to teach herself English so she could make that choice stick. He held the bracelet out. I'm telling you this because you need to understand that everything I'm asking you to do here, all of this is to protect people. 3,100 people work for Meridian. They have families. They have mortgages. They have children who depend on their health insurance. If Thoreau takes over, they restructure. 40% of those jobs disappear. That's not speculation. That's their model. Priya looked at the bracelet, at the charms, at the story written in metal. Why are you telling me this, she asked. Because I need you to understand that I'm not the villain in this story. And I need you to know that if you use the safe word, if you want out, I'll respect it. But I need you to know what you'd be walking away from isn't me. It's them. He set the bracelet on the table between them. My grandmother had a talisman, Priya said quietly. A locket. It had pictures of her parents inside. She gave it to my mother. My mother gave it to me. She reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out a small gold locket on a thin chain. The metal was worn from decades of hands holding it, opening it, touching the faces inside. Where is it now? Marcus asked. Home, Priya said. In my apartment, in my jewelry box. I haven't worn it since I was 14. Why not? Because I was ashamed of where I came from. Because I wanted to be American enough. Important enough. Because I thought if I didn't carry it with me, people would stop seeing me as someone's granddaughter and start seeing me as my own person. She looked at him. Really looked. The performance had dropped. This was just a man in a room with a woman who'd just told him something true. Bring it tomorrow, Marcus said. Bring the locket. Wear it under your shirt where Thoreau's people can't see it. And when this is over. When all of this is over and we've walked away from each other and you're back to being just Priya the receptionist, you'll know that you wore it while you saved 3,100 jobs. That's not nothing. The next morning, Priya arrived at Meridian's offices at 6:47 a.m. She was wearing the locket under her shirt. The weight of it was unfamiliar, a gentle pressure against her collarbone. Her grandmother, her mother, 3 generations of women deciding what mattered. Marcus was already in his office. He'd been there since 3 a.m., he told her. He hadn't slept. Alejandro sent another message, Marcus said. He turned his computer screen toward her. The email was dated 5:22 a.m. from Alejandro's account to an external address. Subject line, final confirmation. The message contained a list. Every significant contract that Meridian held. Every client. Every revenue stream. Alongside each was a percentage figure. The premium Thoreau would offer those clients to switch allegiance during the restructuring. It's a roadmap, Marcus said quietly. This is what Alejandro promised them. This is the proof they're using to convince their capital partners that the acquisition will be profitable. Can you trace it? Priya asked. Already done. The email was sent from a location at JFK Airport. Gate 47, Admiral's Club Lounge. Timestamp 5:19 a.m., 3 minutes before he sent it. Security footage available. We can pull the CCTV, cross-reference it with his passport entry, confirm he met with someone from Thoreau's team before he sent the file. He pulled up a folder on his desktop. Inside were 3 documents. First, a screenshot of Alejandro's email with full headers, the IP address, the mail server timestamp showing 05-19-32-0420, the device fingerprint. Second, a policy document stamped Meridian Capital, confidentiality and non-disclosure agreement dated 3 years ago, with Alejandro's signature on page 12. Subsection C7 outlined the specific penalties for unauthorized disclosure of contract information. Third, a receipt, hotel check-in from the previous night. The Plaza Hotel, room 2847, registered to Alejandro Santos, checked in at 11:44 p.m., checked out at 5:03 a.m. "Where's the neutral party?" Priya asked. She was thinking like Marcus now, understanding the architecture of proof. "Ellen," he said. "She has access to the personnel records. She can confirm his payroll and his employment status. She can testify that his access to these contracts is controlled through an authentication system that logs every file opened, every user, every timestamp. She can walk anyone through the audit trail." "And the authority?" "I've already called the New York Attorney General's office, Investor Fraud Unit. I sent them a preliminary brief at 4 a.m. They're assigning an investigator. Should have someone here by 10 a.m. Priya felt something shift in her chest. The lie was becoming a prosecution. The arrangement was becoming evidence. "What happens to Alejandro?" she asked. "He gets arrested," Marcus said flatly. "Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, unauthorized access and disclosure of proprietary information. Wire fraud because he used email to transmit the files across state lines. If Thoreau is smart, they drop him and deny contact. If they're not, they go down with him." "And if he had a good reason?" Priya asked. "If he was pushed out, if the previous CEO, then he talks to a lawyer and they build a defense," Marcus said. "But you don't get to steal company information because you're angry. You file a lawsuit. You go to the labor board. You don't sell your company's future to hostile investors." He closed the folder. "I need you to wear the locket where people can see it today. I need you to walk into that board meeting looking like someone who belongs. I need Thoreau's team to think we are a united front. A couple. A partnership. An unbreakable thing." "That's not a lie anymore," Priya said. "No," Marcus said. "It's strategy." But he reached across his desk and touched the small gold chain at her neck, just barely visible above her collar. His fingers were warm. His touch was real. The investigator's name was David Chen. 43 years old, suit from a department store, a badge that said New York Attorney General's Office, Fraud Investigations Unit. He set up in the Meridian conference room with a laptop and 3 folders, and he went through the evidence like someone who'd done this 100 times. "The keystroke analysis is solid," he said, clicking through the files. "Log K4821 shows the unauthorized access occurred from Terminal 47B at the Madrid facility between 23:12:14 and 23:34:47 yesterday. Same terminal where Alejandro accessed his email at 05-19-32-0400 this morning from a different location shows a direct IP match to the Admirals Club router at JFK. He's definitely the source." He pulled up the receipt from the Plaza Hotel. Beside it, he placed a screenshot from a keycard log. Room 2847 had been accessed 3 times. Entry at 23:47 p.m., Alejandro. Exit at 06:31 a.m., Alejandro. And entry at 02:15 a.m. without corresponding exit, unknown. "Someone else was in that room," Chen said. "Between 2:15 and when he checked out. They could have given him the encryption key to access Thoreau's servers. Could have coached him on what to send." Marcus's face didn't change, but Priya felt him tense beside her. "Can we identify the second keycard?" Marcus asked. "Working on it," Chen said. "The hotel's access system only logs entry and exit by card. Once you're inside, there's no tracking. But if the second person used their own room card, I can get them from the front desk records." Ellen stood up. "I need to make a call," she said. She looked at Marcus. "With your permission." Marcus nodded. Ellen stepped into the hallway. Through the glass walls of the conference room, Priya could see her dial, could see her mouth move. Whatever she was saying, it was important. When Ellen returned 15 minutes later, she was holding a printed email. She set it in front of Chen without a word. "What is this?" Chen asked. "Catherine Huang's calendar," Ellen said. "She sent it to me this morning as a courtesy. She wanted to make sure we knew where her time was committed, so there'd be no confusion about her movements. She was at a client dinner in Boston yesterday at 8 p.m., but according to this email, she had a flexibility window from 10:30 p.m. to 7 a.m. for personal business and travel adjustment." Chen read it twice. She admits she had time to be in the Plaza Hotel. "She admits nothing," Ellen said. "She admits she had flexibility. But combined with what you found in the keycard logs, someone was definitely with Alejandro that night." Priya felt the edges of the truth beginning to sharpen. This wasn't just a mole. This was conspiracy. This was a second person. This was a pattern. Marcus caught her eye. In that moment, she understood. He'd suspected this all along. He'd been waiting for it. For her. "There's something else," Chen said quietly. He opened his third folder. Inside was a photograph. A gold pen, the same one Catherine had set on Marcus's desk yesterday, the one with the initials ARS. But this photo showed the pen from multiple angles. Close-ups of the monogramming, a timestamp in the corner, evidence log, 3471, Plaza Hotel, room 2847, 02:47 a.m., recovered from wastebasket by housekeeping staff. "This pen was in Alejandro's hotel room," Chen said. "Housekeeping found it in the trash at 2:47 a.m. and turned it in. Hotels keep these things for lost and found. I picked it up this morning. The pen is high-end, retails for $800, monogrammed with Alejandro's initials. But the interesting part is what's inside." He pulled out a micro SD card, barely the size of a rice grain. "It's a discrete storage device. Old tradecraft but effective. Fits inside a pen barrel. Alejandro used it to transfer the contract data physically, in case there was digital surveillance. We're having the card analyzed now, but I'm confident it contains everything that was in his email." The room went silent. "You're telling me," Marcus said slowly, "that Catherine Huang paid Alejandro to steal our files, and then she gave him a pen to carry the evidence and told him to keep it as proof of their partnership." "I'm telling you that someone with access to Alejandro left that pen in his room," Chen said. "Whether that's Catherine or someone working for her, we're still determining." Priya looked at the photograph of the pen, the gold gleaming, the initials that belonged to someone who'd been pushed out, someone who was angry enough to risk everything. Then she looked at Marcus, and she understood. There was a moment, just a moment, where she thought he might ask her to use the safe word, might let her walk away before this got darker. Instead, he asked, "What do you need to move forward with charges?" The email came at 9:47 a.m. on Friday. Subject line, meeting, staff conduct, agenda, media policy compliance review, sent from hrcomplianceameridian.com to everyone in Priya's department. 10 people, all support staff, all scheduled for a meeting in HR conference room C at 10 a.m. She knew what it meant before she opened it. Marcus was in a call with the Attorney General's team. She could see him through the glass walls of his office gesturing, explaining something to the 3 suits sitting across from his desk. His face was drawn. He hadn't eaten. He hadn't slept the night before. She gathered her things and walked to HR. The room was small and windowless. Rebecca Morris, the Human Resources Director, was waiting. She had a file open on the table, and inside were screenshots of Priya's email to her mother, her text exchange with a college friend, a note she'd written to herself in her personal diary, synced to the cloud. "We've become aware that you've been sharing company information," Rebecca said. Her voice was gentle, which made it worse, specifically sensitive matters related to ongoing board negotiations. "Our IT department flagged your access to the secure server yesterday at 14:33 and noted that files were open for viewing from a personal device shortly after." Priya opened her mouth. "I didn't share anything," she said. "The investigation isn't complete yet," Rebecca said. But the board has asked me to place you on immediate administrative leave pending a full review. This is with full pay, and you'll retain your health insurance and benefits during the investigation period. It was corporate language for "you're fired. We're just being polite about it." "This is because I'm married to Marcus," Priya said. "This is because you violated policy," Rebecca said. And then quietly, "I'm sorry, Priya. I liked you." She walked back upstairs. The 14th floor was quiet. Most people were in meetings or had already left for lunch. She packed her personal items into a cardboard box. The photo of her parents, the pen holder a colleague had given her, the tea she'd been keeping in the kitchen. Marcus wasn't in his office. She checked the conference room where the AG investigators had been working. Empty. She checked his apartment building downstairs. No. She called his phone. He answered on the 4th ring. "Where are you?" she asked. "JFK, he said. His voice was hollow. "I'm getting on a plane to Madrid. Alejandro tried to destroy the evidence. He was at the airport this morning trying to leave the country. The police stopped him. The AG's team is flying down to coordinate with the Spanish authorities. I need to be there." "How long?" "I don't know. Maybe a week. Maybe longer." He paused. "Priya, I'm sorry. I knew they'd try something like this. I didn't think they'd move this fast. They're saying I violated policy," she said quietly. "They're saying I shared company information." "Did you?" "No." "Then we fight it. When I get back, we bring in a lawyer. We get your emails analyzed. We prove it was planted. You didn't do anything wrong." "I lied for you," Priya said. "In front of the board, in front of Thoreau, in front of the Attorney General's office, I said I was your wife. You were protecting this company. You were protecting people. I was lying," she said, "and now I'm paying for it." Marcus was quiet for a long time. "The safe word," he said finally. "Do you want to use it?" She thought about the locket at her throat, about her grandmother, her mother, about 3,100 people who didn't know her name but were sleeping more soundly tonight because of what she'd done. "No," Priya said. "I want to know what happens next." He told her to go home. He told her to rest. He told her he'd call when he landed. She never used the safe word. She sat alone in her apartment that night, the locket heavy against her skin, and asked herself a question she didn't have an answer for. What do you do when protecting someone means destroying yourself? David Chen called at 7:33 a.m. on Wednesday. He was in Madrid in a police station standing next to Alejandro Santos in an interrogation room that smelled like coffee and fear. "We have him on the micro SD card," Chen said. The call was video, and Priya could see Alejandro's face behind him. Drawn, age-worn, looking at something far away. Every file transferred, every timestamp, every IP address log. He's giving up Catherine Huang. He's giving up everything. Priya was watching from her apartment, still on administrative leave, still in limbo. "He's also giving up the person who introduced him to Thoreau," Chen continued. "It was Ellen Voss." The words didn't land immediately. Then they crashed. "What?" Priya said. "Ellen Voss," Chen repeated. "She was the mole. She was the one who set this up. She fed Alejandro the information he needed. She arranged the meeting at the Plaza Hotel. She even gave him the pen with the SD card, told him it was a gift from their new partner, meaning Catherine. Ellen was trying to orchestrate a hostile takeover of her own company." Priya felt the room tilt. "Why would she do that?" Priya asked. "Because she was pushed out," Chen said. 3 years ago, Marcus went against her recommendation on a major acquisition. He was right. The deal turned profitable. But Ellen lost face, lost authority. She's been looking for a way to take him down ever since. When Thoreau came circling, she saw her chance. What happens to her? Arrest warrant goes out this afternoon. Wire fraud, conspiracy, breach of fiduciary duty, unauthorized disclosure of proprietary information. She'll be facing charges similar to Alejandro's, possibly more severe because she initiated the scheme. Chen pulled up something on his end. A file, a document. But here's the part that matters for you. We found evidence that Ellen fabricated the HR complaint against you. She had IT plant those screenshots in the cloud access logs. She created a fake trail to make it look like you'd been accessing files from a personal device. She did it to discredit you, to remove you as a witness to her scheme. He set a folder on the table. Inside were documents, chain of custody forms, timestamps, hash values confirming the integrity of the digital evidence, a statement from an IT auditor at Meridian confirming the false trail. Your suspension is being lifted immediately, Chen said. Meridian's new interim CFO, they're bringing someone in from outside, will be calling you this morning with a formal apology and a job offer. Enhanced position, significant raise. Your choice. And Marcus? Priya asked. Is flying back tonight. The Spanish authorities have everything they need. Alejandro's cooperation is locked in. Catherine Huang is being arrested as she lands at Newark. Ellen Voss is being arrested in her home this afternoon. The press conference was held at Meridian Capital's offices on Friday morning. Marcus stood at a polished podium with Priya beside him. Not touching, but present, visible, real. Behind them, David Chen stood with folders containing the evidence. Every screenshot, every timestamp, every chain of custody form. 30 days of investigation, 12 jurisdictions, 3 separate criminal referrals. This morning, the New York Attorney General's office filed charges against 3 individuals for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, computer fraud, and abuse of their fiduciary duties, Marcus said. His voice was steady. The performance was over. This was just the truth. Ellen Voss, who served as CFO of Meridian Capital for 8 years, Alejandro Santos, who managed our Madrid operations, and Catherine Huang, lead investor for Thoreau Capital. He stepped aside. Chen took the podium. The investigation revealed a coordinated scheme to destabilize Meridian Capital by stealing proprietary information and selling it to a hostile investor, Chen said. He held up the micro SD card, barely visible in the light. This device contained every major contract held by Meridian, every client relationship and pricing information that would have allowed Thoreau Capital to undermine those relationships during a hypothetical acquisition. A reporter raised her hand. Was there any role played by the CEO's spouse in uncovering this? Chen glanced at Marcus, then back at the room. Priya Mehta was present during key board meetings where the investigation was being discussed, Chen said. Her presence and her observations helped establish a timeline of events that was critical to identifying the conspirators. He didn't say she'd lied. He didn't say she'd done anything except observe. But everyone in the room understood. After the press conference, Ellen Voss was arrested in her penthouse apartment in Brooklyn. She was wearing a cream-colored suit, the same one Priya had seen her in that first morning in the boardroom. In the mugshot taken 2 hours later, her eyes looked like someone staring at the end of everything. Catherine Huang was arrested at Newark Airport. She was carrying the pen, a new one, but the same model as Alejandro's. In her coat pocket, investigators found an encrypted phone with messages to Alejandro, to Ellen, to other operatives inside 3 different companies. Alejandro Santos remained in Madrid pending extradition proceedings. His face became public. His name became synonymous with corporate espionage. But more importantly, his cooperation meant he'd likely face reduced charges. The prosecutors believed he was a tool, not an architect. They believed he was a man who'd been angry and had made a terrible choice because someone smarter had offered him a path. On the second evening after the press conference, Priya sat in her apartment and pulled out her locket. She opened it. Inside were 2 photographs. One of her grandmother as a young woman holding a key. One of her mother at the airport ready to leave for a country she'd never been to, carrying just a suitcase and a compass rose. She touched the tiny gold images. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she recognized. I'm back. Can we talk? They met at a coffee shop in Brooklyn, not far from where Ellen had been arrested. The space was neutral, anonymous, the kind of place where 2 people could sit without being the story. Marcus was wearing jeans and a gray sweater. He looked like someone who'd finally slept, like someone who'd decided to stop performing. I want to apologize, he said, before she could say anything else. For dragging you into this, for asking you to lie, for not seeing that it would cost you. I got my job back, Priya said. Better job. Better pay. But you lost the choice, Marcus said. The moment you said yes, you lost the ability to say no. And I knew that. I let you say yes anyway because I needed you to. Priya stirred her coffee. She watched the cream swirl into the black. What happens now? She asked. Now you can choose, Marcus said. He set something on the table between them, a small box, velvet, the color of midnight. Not because of the company, not because of the investigation, not because I need you for anything, but because you're the bravest person I've ever met. Because you wore your grandmother's locket into a war you didn't start. Because you stood next to me when you had every reason to run. He opened the box. Inside was a gold bracelet, not the one his grandmother had owned. A new one. 3 charms hanging from it. A locket, infinitesimal, barely the size of a seed pearl, but shaped just like the one at her throat. A compass rose, and a key. I'm asking you to choose me, Marcus said, not as a lie, not as a strategy, not as something that protects anyone or anything except the two of us. I'm asking you to choose me because you want to. Priya looked at the bracelet, at the charms, at the story he was asking her to write with him. What if I choose differently? She asked. Then you take the bracelet anyway, and you wear it as a reminder that you saved a company and 3,100 jobs because you had the courage to trust someone you barely knew, and you live your life knowing you were braver than brave. You were kind in a moment where cruelty would have been easier. He reached across the table. His hand was steady. His eyes were clear. Or, he said, you choose me. And we figure out what that means. No script, no arrangement, just us. Priya thought about her grandmother, about her mother, about the women in her family who'd chosen to leave comfortable things in search of something true. She thought about the locket at her throat and the bracelet he was offering her, and the choice that was finally, actually hers. She reached across the table and took his hand. I choose you, she said. When you stand in someone else's boardroom wearing someone else's name, you have 2 paths. You can become the lie, or you can become yourself loudly enough that the truth has no choice but to follow. The lies we tell in service of protecting others can hollow us out, but only if we let them. Dignity isn't about never falling into compromise. It's about knowing exactly when you have, and choosing to climb back out. Boundaries aren't walls. They're promises we make to ourselves that we won't let anyone else's emergency become our destruction. And a second chance isn't forgiveness, it's permission to begin again, knowing exactly what you're capable of. If you had been Priya at the moment Marcus asked you to lie for him, would you have said yes, knowing then what you know now? Subscribe to Infinite Stories and tell us, what would you have done?